Before I begin this review, I just want to say real quick, yes, Taizai is subbed. There is subs already out, so if you want to go watch it, you can watch it now. You don't have to watch the raw version. So anyways, let's talk about this episode. I was hit in the feel button. The feel button was pressed when I watched this episode. That after credit scene with Bon and Elaine, oh my god. Oh my god, dude. Seeing that shit animated, man, that really gets you, man. When you see the music, like the music and the animation, the fire and all that, oh my god. Just the way the backgrounds were done, the way the scenes were orchestrated in this episode, and just scene by scene, it was just executed properly. The way the animators decided to actually use the flashback sequence, the side story with Bon and Elaine, they did a perfect job with implementing that into this episode. They did a damn good job. The way they slowly built it up, I think they did a damn good job. I really do. Now, I want to let you all know, anime-only watchers, this flashback scene you should not have seen until like an arc later. Personally, the way they added this scene in, it's actually a lot better. I feel like the way they added in this flashback sequence is a lot better than even the manga handled it. The way it was slowly building up to this point, it felt like it was the proper place to actually put this flashback sequence besides later on down the road in the manga like it did. So, personally, this is one aspect I will say. The anime has surpassed the manga in certain aspects when it comes to Bon and Elaine's relationship with that flashback. Now, one thing I am quite shocked with is the lack of censors. Usually, when you see a series like this, especially with a freaking hole in someone's chest, like for instance Elaine in this episode, usually it's censored with a big freaking black dot like we saw in Terraform Mars or Akame ga Kill. Yes, Akame ga Kill is also censored. Only Japan gets to see the censors. So, I'm quite shocked to see how Taizai is not that censored. I mean, you could tell it was slightly censored with the, like, hole inside of Elaine, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that noticeable, so I felt like the censors were handled properly also with this episode. Now, the thing is, okay, this episode, it progresses to the overall ending development of Bon's backstory, his tragedy, his tragic past. That's pretty much what this episode does, and you find out that this person he grew to love and he loved and cared for pretty much died. And she died protecting him. And in her final acts of her life, she gave Bon the Fountain of Youth to keep him alive, but she died in the process. Like, at first, Bon wanted her to drink the Fountain of Youth, for she could live on. And he was fine with that. He was accepting death. He was literally accepting death. And the next moment he realizes he's getting a kiss by the person he loves, and she dies in his arms. That is fucked up. On so many levels. That's fucked up. And when he was wanting to say what he wanted to say to her, he will make her his. When he actually said that in this episode, like when you saw the present day time when he said that to Elaine, when she was a ghost spirit form, it has so much more weight when they added that flashback sequence, and it makes you think like, oh my god. I never really realized the actual correlation with that dialogue right there when I actually read the manga. I did not realize that, and getting to see that displayed was just awe-inspiring. I'm like, damn. It really was sadder. It was a lot sadder to me personally than even the manga in certain aspects. Now, this episode, for the most part, there is no problems with it. Actually, they did a really damn good job with this episode. The way it was executed, the way they adapted the chapters, it was literally word for word, panel for panel from the manga, which is damn nice. It was damn nice the way it was adapted. Now, as I said last week, the Black Hound got completely excluded from the last week's episode. I'm gonna wait and see when they add it. If they add it after they get out of this little arc right here going on, then it might be fine. We'll have to see how it goes, but for the moment, I am actually kind of satisfied with how A1 is still adapting this properly. They're not really skipping anything that was important in this chapter. They even actually took the time to introduce all the powers of each individual scene, along with the different powers of Gira in this episode. So, for the moment, I'll sit aside the Black Hound being excluded from last episode. I'll have to see how they handle it after we get done with this arc. But anyways, getting back on topic with this episode, the introductions to the powers. Let's get into details and talk about that. So, we find out that Meliodas, he can use a power called Full Counter. For instance, he can counter any move, any enemy's move that's coming at him, he can actually counter it. But he can't really attack himself. He actually takes and redirects the attack back to his opponent. And that's pretty much how Full Counter works. And so you had it to where Gira in this episode did not use a full blast explosion like as strong as she could to test out full counter to see if Meliodas could use it, and he showcased that ability, and Girda did not get hurt at all. So we get a demonstration of Meliodas' power. We also get a demonstration of Bon and Diane's power in this episode too, along with King. King got his power actually demonstrated too, but I'll get into those in just a moment. Now, Diane, we find out her power is creation, which was already demonstrated a couple of times already in past couple episodes with the weird fang, pretty much. Diane can manipulate the earth pretty much because she is a giant. So, it's pretty obvious, like, she can turn, like, sand or rock or diamond into, like, fucking, like, sand. Like, she turned, like, minerals or whatever into sand. Like, I forgot the exact pieces of dialogue. But pretty much, Diane can manipulate earth, pretty much. She has, like, the power of creation. And then you have it to where Bon has the ability called Snatch, and he is actually trying to snatch the weapon out of Girda's hand in this episode, which was really badass. They actually kind of demonstrated this ability a little bit already in the manga before it got to this point, but I think the reason why the animators decided to actually exclude Bon's introduction with his power is because they were waiting for this specific moment until they actually introduced everybody's powers in the manga, pretty much. So I think that's why they waited for Bon's reveal with his power, but I felt like the way they executed Bon's power being revealed with Snatch, the way he was trying to steal her freaking just store it out of her hand, that was amazing. That was straight out amazing. And King's power, it seems like he can manipulate his weapon. As you can see, he can manipulate his weapon, and he can turn into different shapes and things. Like, he turned Bon into, like, a fossilized freaking bone. That's exactly what he did in this episode, so it's like, damn. So, that's the demonstrations and the smackdown on their power. So, let's talk about this overall episode. What did it do? What did it develop? What was the main importance of this episode? The main things you can get from this episode is Bon's characterization, what he has had to go through, what he has dealt with, why is he like he is, why is King like he is, why is King trying to kill Bon in this episode or tried to fossilize him, for instance, and why is, Bon immortal? We find out all these different answers in this episode, which really makes me happy. It's just the way it was executed, I felt like it wasn't too much information that overloaded anime-only watchers, but it was enough information to keep anyone interested and answer certain questions and give more questions on top of that. So, one thing I do want to discuss about this episode of Taizai, the soundtrack. Oh my god, the soundtrack of this episode was just brilliant. Of course, music is subjective, and it depends on your type of music. But the music, in my eyes, that music was just so fitting, especially when you saw the demon, the red demon, just burning down the forest, put a hole in a lane, cut freaking Bon almost in half with a shoulder blade right here. Just the way the music was done in this episode was awesome. Oh my god. So, I have really no complaints about this episode. I really don't. And I felt like, A1 is on track, and the way they handled everything in this episode, I think they did a damn good job. So, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or not, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.